Hello, everybody. Let me just scoot this in here. Bring this back a little bit. Okay, for those that don't know me, I'm Alex Grichuhin. I'm one of the directors of pulmonary rehabilitation at HRN. I am under the Maryland Board of Physicians as a pulmonary care practitioner. I have to make sure everyone understands that the attire that I'm wearing is for pajama day. Yesterday was camo, and the day before that was something else. So today's pajama day, and this is pajamas. So I usually wear scrubs, but anyways, we're going to be doing some lung exercises to help with your breathing and going over some of the maximum heart rate, volume requirements when it comes to how much air you're supposed to breathe in, and go over some basic tips and stuff like that. First off, let's look at some of the basic stuff. Let me grab a better marker than what I have over there. I'll use this one. I have a ton of markers. I can't seem to find them. Anyways, so when we look at in a clinical setting, a lot of people are trying to exercise their heart out. They're trying to, get in better shape to do, more and more things. So when we as clinicians try to help somebody understand where to stay within their pulse range, we look at kind of like the Bronson's guide as well as the AACVPR guidelines and simple American Lung Association type of guidelines when it comes to cardiac health and as well as pulmonary health. And just realize that pulmonary and cardiac, you're still dealing with cardiopulmonary, is still dealing with the same types of stuff: circulation, perfusion, not just ventilation, not just how much air you breathe in, and because the heart and lungs they work kind of intermittently in itself. So understanding some basic requirements or what to look for when you're exercising. So anyways, for those that don't know, HRN, that's this company here, provides pulmonary and cardiac rehabilitation. So that's what we specialize in. This is a complementary to a traditional program that you would go inside. So a lot of people that go inside a traditional facility versus going into our types of programs where you do the therapy from home, they see that not just the benefits out of it, but the success rates, how successful the program would be. From watching it where I see you see me doing through telemedicine versus a traditional facility, they didn't see any difference. Besides, it was a lot more convenient, but we don't replace hands-on. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. We don't replace hands-on help. So if you are the type of person that can't stand up and they're bedridden, then a facility is probably the best place you can go to. But if you can actually move around and understand simple language, simple English and things like that, and follow command, then this program is probably best for you too. So, but like I said, this program, you don't have to travel anywhere. Anyways, I have to state that, by the way. So let's look at some of the basic calculations and formulas that we can do to better enhance our understanding for where should we stay at when we're exercising. First off, lung requirements. You want to be around 50% of your maximum volume. And a lot of people don't understand where their maximum volume, and this is simple calculation. Don't make this calculus. Very simple calculation that you can figure out. So would be very necessary and a very good idea is if you have an incentive spirometer. So an incentive spirometer, the maneuver is a SMI, stands for sustained maximum inspiratory, how much air you can bring into your lungs. Okay, so this is what this is. This is not an exerciser. Don't let anybody fool you. This is not an exerciser. Because this doesn't increase muscle growth. There's no resistance. So if there's no resistance, it's like the same if I'm lifting something with no weight in my hand, it's not going to provide any resistance. I'm not going to gain muscle mass from that. Same with this. This does not build muscle growth. If somebody told you, just tell them to get the money back from school they went to, because that's not what it does. It's not what it measures. Incentive spirometers measures. So let's say you're using an incentive spirometer. How high are you supposed to be at? So these are things that a lot of people don't, a lot of clinicians don't tell you. Some they maybe don't understand, or maybe they just think that you're just supposed to breathe in into reverse forms of atelectasis where the alveoli are collapsing. And that sounds like a lot of medical, jargon and whatever. But atelectasis is the collapsing of the alveoli, just in case. But volume, it's what the calculation is very simple. It's 65 milliliters. This is volume, how much air can go into your lungs. So we're looking at volume. I'll put in a little lung. Okay. So how much air can go into my lung? How much air can fill it up? So it's 65 milliliters per kilogram of your ideal body weight. It's that simple. So it's 65 milliliters per kilogram of ideal body weight. So let's take me, for instance. I'm 6 foot tall. Now, I weigh 215 pounds, but that's not my ideal body weight. So you can go online and just type in IBW calculator on Google search or something, and you can look at what your ideal body weight is supposed to be. So you take your ideal body weight, and if it's not already converted to kilograms, just simply divide it by 2.2. So let's take me, for instance. I'm 215 pounds, but my ideal body weight is 180 pounds. That's what I should be at. Okay, but I'm a big guy. I'm just a bigger person. So the 180 pounds probably wouldn't work out for me, but needless to say, it's still my ideal body weight. Okay, so I take my ideal body weight, put it into kilograms. So I weigh, like I said, the ideal body weight is 180 pounds for me because I'm 6 foot tall. So it's all based off of height. So my ideal body weight is 180 pounds. I'm just going to divide it by 2.2 to put it in kilograms, and that's going to give me 81.8. I'm just going to round up and say I'm 82 kilograms. Okay, so I'm 82 kilograms. Now I'm going to multiply, very simple, 82 kilograms of ideal body weight multiplied by 65. So 82 times 65 is going to be 5,330. That means on my incentive spirometer, when I measure, I should be well up, hitting the 4,000 and staying up there for about a few seconds. Okay? If I'm only able to get to 1,000, 1,500, especially for how tall you are, that's why we do these calculations in the medical field. We do these because we want to make sure that if somebody's getting out of breath very quickly, they might not be exhaling enough CO2. Might not be bringing enough oxygen because your body's needing a gallon of air. You might be breathing so shallow, you're only giving it a couple tablespoons. You understand? Okay. So ideal body weight. And now I need to be 50% of that. 50% or higher. A lot of doctors, a lot of other clinicians, a lot of respiratory therapists will try to say 40%, and that's fine. I don't like bare minimums. So I like 50% or higher. Okay, 50% or higher. So let's just make the math super easy. Let's just say 5,000. Half of 5,000 is 2,500. Okay. I need to be at that to breathe like a human being. Okay. I need to breathe that deep to be able to sustain life properly, being able to exercise, walking without being so, not having my breathing being so difficult. Okay, so let's test it. So 2,500, I just need to be at least up to here or higher. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my lung volumes. If I can't get very high, then I don't have the strength. So I would have to work on respiratory muscle training, intercostal and diaphragmatic muscle training to build the muscle to open my lungs more to get more air inside. Okay. All right. So let's test it and see how I can get to. First, I want to make sure I do this correctly. So I'm going to make sure my posture is good. So I'm standing up nice and straight and tall. So I'm going to exhale first. Now, why would I exhale first? Because if there's air in your lungs and you're trying to measure, that's your goal. That's what you're doing, is you want to measure. But if there's air inside there, how do you know how much air is inside you already? You don't know. So what you want to do is you want to exhale first. Okay, get rid of all the air out of your lungs. Because if you just start inhaling through here and you're not sure how much air was already in your lungs, you know, let's say, let's do it like this. Okay, this is equal to your lungs. All right. So let's just say really quick, you have X amount of residual volume, but you have no idea how much air is in your lungs currently. Okay, there's always residual volume in your lungs. Your lungs don't collapse. Okay, it doesn't collapse like that. You know, so exhaling doesn't collapse your lungs. But anyways, there's residual volume. So if you try to measure from here, you start inhaling, but you didn't get rid of this. You start inhaling from here to here. But if you don't know what this is, you won't know what that is, what you can inhale. All right. So let's say you inhaled and you saw you went up to about 1,000. Let's say you went up to 1,000. Okay. So you inhaled on top of that 1,000, but you're not measuring how much air can go into your lungs. You're measuring on top of your residual volume. But you have to know what your residual volume is. So if you don't know, then what do? We exhale first. Exhale all the way out. Exhale. Okay? So we're going to exhale, and sometimes we might need to exhale for about 8 seconds. I always say 4 seconds or more, but you can do a Shakani technique, and I can go over that afterwards. But so I'm going to make sure that I understand the device itself. This is an incentive spirometer. Okay, this is not an exerciser unless you attach a Delta-V system to it. And in case you don't know what a Delta-V is, that's a Delta-V. Okay, so anyways, this is the piston. This is a flow meter. Very important we understand the flow meter, not just the volume. Okay, so the piston, there's the piston chamber, there's the piston right there. I'm going to measure from the top of the piston, not the middle, not the bottom. Top of the piston. So whatever it goes up to, okay, whatever it goes up to, that's what I'm going to look at afterwards. Okay, so on a flow meter, I just have to make sure on a flow meter that the marker stays in between the box at all times. So I know, because if I breathe in too fast like this and I keep the flow meter up, the measurement is wrong, no matter what. It's always incorrect. Okay, so I'm going to keep my back straight. I'm going to exhale until there's no air left in my lungs, getting rid of all my residual volume. Okay, just keep it up there. So went way above that. So I'm breathing well. Okay, that means exercising won't be a complication. Getting from point A to point B won't be a complication. A lot of pulmonary rehabs they'll try to get you to do is just jump on a bike or a treadmill and they just check your pulse ox. That's not pulmonary rehab. You can't breathe with the exercise. So you got to fix that first. Okay. By the way, we don't fix that with medications. Okay. Medications are not what we use in pulmonary rehab to help somebody breathe better. That's a temporary relief. Okay. In pulmonary rehab, you should be going over quite a bit of exercise and techniques. In our pulmonary rehab, and in traditional pulmonary rehab, and I governed pulmonary rehab for quite some time. For those that don't know me, I've won over 7 national awards and a global award as being one of the top ones out there in the United States. That's true. I am Alex Grichuhin. So they call me the leader in pulmonary. I've rehabbed, I'm not sure how many people, but it's a very, very high number. But I never use medications to rehabilitate somebody. That is a temporary relief. So, and that's one thing is, let's say you measured your lung volumes, okay, on your incentive spirometer, and let's say you're at 1,000. Okay, that's right here. You have to be able to measure your lung volumes. You can't just guess. Oh, is it okay? What's that going to do? That's not going to do anything. So you have to measure it. So anyways, let's say you're at 1,000 and your doctor gave you Let's make this fun. Oh, and by the way, I go over facts. I don't go over fiction, nothing like that. These are facts. Okay, so I don't make things up. So if you ever need a reference point, you can easily look at FDA, some of the FDA stuff that I'll be going over with some of the medications. That's the Food and Drug Administration. You can also go to NIH, AACVPR. That's this one. AACVPR. That's American Association of Cardiovascular Pulmonary Rehabilitation. Okay, and that's .org. AARC.org does have a lot of good information. NIH. Okay. American Lung Association. NIH. Any of those will be good reference points. Also, ATS is a good one. Okay. Don't look at Wikipedia and don't look at Facebook as being your provider for good information. Go to places that actually do reviews and testings and investigative review boards and stuff like that to determine if something is fact or fiction. Okay. Don't go to anything else. Okay. I'm telling you that for professional advice. I'm giving you professional advice. Do not whatsoever. That's how people die. Do not listen to anybody besides your doctor or your clinician, okay, your healthcare provider, all right? Because that's something that we see all the time in the medical field where somebody's like, oh, well, I heard that, spraying Windex down my throat or snorting pineapple juice is a good thing. I was like, you're not a pina colada. I thought, what do you think? Who told you that? Oh, this buddy said he did it all the time. Don't listen to that. That's crazy. Talk to your healthcare provider. Like I'm licensed under the Maryland Board of Physicians. I'm a pulmonary care practitioner. We're all clinicians here, with HRN. So we do the pulmonary and cardiac rehab that you do from home, but where you're able to see me, I'm able to see you. We just use computers or your phone or something like that to do it. Okay, so I'm able to see you. You're able to see me in therapy, doing therapy together. Anyways, so let's take a look at this. Let's say I use my incentive spirometer and I'm up to 1,000 milliliters. My doctor gave me, let's say, Pro Air. Okay, Symbicort. I'll add another one in there. Let's see, how about Spiriva? Let's say Advair. Mind you, you shouldn't be taking all these. That's ridiculous. But I'm just adding some just in case some are more familiar to other people than others. Because some people don't know what Symbicort is or what Advair is. So I'm just going to add these in there. So Advair, let's see, what else here? Symbicort, Spiriva, Advair. Well, these are pretty basic. We'll go with this. Okay, so Advair, let's say it's the 500 over 50. It can also be the 250, okay, over 50. Spiriva, that's 15 micrograms. Symbicort, 160. Pro Air, 2.5 mgs. Okay, so really quick, my volume is at 1,000. And let's say my airway, this is my airway, and it's very constricted. There's a lot of tissue swelling. It's very constricted. I'm wheezing right now. Which medication would I take? Go ahead and reply on the comment section so I can. Which one would you take first? Anybody? Which one would you take first? You can write in the comment section and write back. Don't be shy. Okay. So a lot of people would say they should be taking the Pro Air first or these, or that's not correct. First, if you actually want to do it in order, your airway is constricted. If you take something else like Spiriva, you take Advair, you take Symbicort, those aren't rescue inhalers. Okay, so you want something to dilate your airways. Right now it's constricted. Okay, very good, Karen. Very good, Marianne. Pro Air first. Okay, so Mary, very good. So I would take Pro Air first, right? Okay, so, but there is a big problem. Does anybody know the problem? Each and every one of you should know this, because I think most of you guys have been in my classes before. And I'm wearing pajamas. These are my pajamas. I was wearing other pajamas, but I don't think the robe and everything. Anyways. So you would take the levobuterol? Yeah, you could take that. It's not as beta. That's a beta 2 specific drug, sure. But there's a problem. I'm at 1,000 milliliters. And none of these would work. None of them. None of them. They wouldn't work. You take your Pro Air. Let's say you take your Pro Air. And you know what? Albuterol is correct. You would be 100% correct, but there's a problem. You can't breathe in deep enough to get the medication into your lungs to make it work. Because you're breathing 1,000. What's the volume requirements? First off, you have to be able to when you use a metered-dose inhaler, you have to be able to breathe in deep enough to get the medication into your lungs. Okay, so let's look at dead space. How much dead space is in my airway? Anybody? Dead space is your oral pharynx, nasal pharynx, your, where you have your trachea, bifurcated bronchi, bronchioles, and the alveoli. So how much dead space? That's just tubing. So let's say, for those who don't know, that's 250. Very good, Karen. It's not deep enough to get it into your lungs. Very, very good. I love it. Okay, Pro Air and nebulizer. Oh, nebulizer is what you're saying. 1,500. Very good. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So dead space is 250 milliliters approximately. It all depends on your height. It's about 150 to 250, like 6 foot. I'm 6 foot tall, so it'll be, mine dead space will probably be about 250. So let's say this tubing is 250 milliliters, meaning if I fill this up, I would fill it up with 250 milliliters of whatever, right? So if I breathe out 250, I just filled up this tube, right? If I breathe in 250, how much fresh air did I get? None. It wasn't deep enough. Because you're just moving it back and forth, and your dead space area is not transporting past the alveoli. It has to be higher than 250. You understand? So if I'm at 500 milliliters on your incentive spirometer, that means you're only entraining 250 mils into your body. A squirrel. That's why I say when people breathe like a squirrel, that because you're not breathing in deep enough. It's enough to supply a squirrel, but not enough to keep you sustained at a human level. Squirrel will keep a squirrel alive. It won't keep a human being alive. It's way too shallow. You can't breathe that shallow. You're not supposed to breathe that shallow. I mean, no one told you, but I'm telling you. Okay, you can't breathe that shallow because getting from point A to point B, let's say you're going to try to walk for 6 minutes, and you're working with a volume of 500. By the time you get to 5, 4, 6 steps in, you start getting a little winded, too winded, because it's not enough. To correct that, you have to pick a volume up. It has to be higher than that. So on an average basis, usually for any adult, it should be around 50 liters. It's about 50,000 milliliters. About 50 liters, okay? It's 50,000 milliliters. That's correct. Per minute during vigorous exercise. 50 liters. Okay? 50 liters. That's 50,000. You have to breathe 50,000 milliliters. So that means if you're breathing, let's say 2,000, let's just make the math super easy. You're breathing at 2,000, so you're inhaling 2,000 mils, and you're exercising. So per minute during vigorous exercise like jogging, running, you have to consume at least 50 liters or 50,000 milliliters, same thing, they're equivalent to each other, of air to actually have your work of breathing not being so dramatic. And that is actually written on the some of the basic guides with volume requirements and things like that for clinicians. So let's say somebody's only breathing at 500, and so they're only pulling in 250 milliliters of air. That means they would have to breathe like about 60 breaths per minute when they're exercising, meaning they're super fast. I mean, they have to breathe super fast. It's just too much. It's too taxing on them. So yes, 1200 is where you need. If you're at 1200, then all these would work as long as you're able to hold your breath for 10 seconds at least. But yeah, none of these will work. If you want to convert these meter dose and dry powder inhalers to nebulizers, absolutely. Pro Air is just albuterol. Symbicort and Advair, it would just be budesonide. Okay, Spiriva would be ipratropium. Okay, ipratropium bromide. And that will be all nebulized. So you can convert all these to nebulizer forms, and that's fine. Okay. All right. All right. Let's do some basic calculations on heart, since heart is a big subject. A lot of people ask me, I get so out of breath. I said, are you breathing deep enough? I think I am. Thinking you are, that means assuming you are, is not the answer to any question. You're assuming, no guessing. You want to either you do it well or not. So the rule of thumb is if you're able to pick up your volume past 2,000 and you're able to breathe in at least halfway. So if you take the deepest breath you can right now, okay, well, during exercise, you should be able to breathe in half of that during your exercise, not a quarter. Okay, your body needs a gallon of air. You're giving a couple tablespoons. It's not enough. Okay, there's not enough fuel. There's not enough oxygen coming in. It's going to drop your oxygen levels, and there's not enough CO2 coming out, which is going to increase your heart rate and increase your work of breathing. The oxygen doesn't cause out of breath. It's the CO2 that causes the out of breath feeling. And a lot of people ask me, like, well, Alex, when I'm down at 80%, I'm very out of breath. I said, I just told you. I said, you're not breathing in deep enough to get oxygen in you, and you're not exhaling enough because you breathe in too shallow to get rid of enough CO2, and that's what's causing your work of breathing being very high, meaning you're very out of breath, and your oxygen is very low because you're not bringing in enough, you're not getting rid of enough. It's not rocket science. You got to do it correctly. You got to be dead on point. At least no guessing, at least being above the buffer. And I'll go over that in just a second. But anyways, the calculation is very simple when it comes to heart. You want to stay at 40 to 80%, okay, of your max. I like to kind of, what? Karen, that's a good question. So on Spiriva, the discus inhaler, the handy inhalers, it's only one puff. You don't do two of them. It's just one because it's just a capsule you put in there. You crush it, you let go of the capsulator, and then you just breathe the powder in. For the Respimats, like if you have the Spiriva Respimat like this, okay, this is just one. And you just twist it, and then it'll just spray, and you just breathe it in as you spray. Do not add these to spacers, ever. Don't add these to spacers. Okay. But the powder ones, I mean, you can. It won't hurt you if you take two, but it's only one pill. Make sure you don't double dose the pills. Okay. What I'm talking about, the Spiriva Handy Inhaler, is where you put a pill in there, you crush the capsule, it actually punctures it. Okay, so it puts one on top, one on the bottom, and as you breathe in through the handy inhaler, the air flows in the bottom, goes to the top, and pushes out all the powder and travels into your lungs. That's if you can breathe in deep enough. But if you're using something different, and it requires 2 puffs, it's always a good idea to wait a little bit of time. So you take 1 puff, wait like 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, and then take another puff after. But remember, those are not rescue inhalers, so you can take them anytime. It's not necessarily a therapeutic blood level you're looking at like you do with corticosteroids. A lot of people don't realize corticosteroids, some of them take, according to the PDQs and everything I got, some of them can take up to 2 weeks to start working. Yes, they don't work right away. You have to develop a therapeutic blood level. It's not a rescue inhaler. Corticosteroids are not rescue inhalers. They're maintenance inhalers. They maintain the system. You know, they work on environmental exposures and things like that. But some of them will take about 2-3 days on average when you take a corticosteroid. That's why I get a lot where somebody's like, I'm taking my Symbicort, I'm taking my Advair, and it doesn't do anything. I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, I took it once and I didn't feel any different. I said, well, you wouldn't. I said, you have to wait. You have to develop a therapeutic blood. Like, look at Wellbutrin, which is a antidepressant. You take it Wellbutrin, it doesn't work right away. You have to wait 2 weeks to develop a therapeutic blood level to keep it in your system. Okay, so it doesn't work right away. That's the same thing. So, but Karen, I hope that helps. So on 2 puffs, depends on which device you got, I want to say. If it's the Haiti inhaler, you can do 2, but never 2 pills. Never double dose on the backdoor inhalers. So, yeah, you don't ever double dose those. It's completely contraindicated. Instead of protecting and keeping the airways open, it will reverse it. Okay, never double dose those. Anyways, 40 to 80%. What I like to do is, let's say 40 to 60, 60 to 75, 75 to 80. Okay, you're looking at low intensity, moderate intensity exercises, and high intensity exercises. Okay, now let's say, how do I do the calculation now? You're very welcome, Karen. How do I do the calculation? It's 220 minus your age. 220 minus your age. So I take 220 minus age. Let's say the age is 85. So 220 minus 85, it's 135. Okay, so I take 100, so that's my maximum heart rate now. That's what I did for my maximum heart rate, because I have to determine my maximum heart rate. So 220 minus 85, that means my maximum heart rate allowable is 135. If it goes higher, that's okay. It can go higher sometimes, but you don't want it to. You have to govern that. And take a look at heart rate like CO2. You want to know if you have high CO2 level? Look at your heart rate. If your heart rate's high, higher than average than what you were before, it's always very high. That means your CO2 is very high. You might be a CO2 retainer, So, and that's okay to be at. That's fixable, but also your body compensates for that. So don't worry. My screen is frozen. Can everybody see me? Can everybody give me a thumbs up or saying you're okay now? Is your screen frozen? Double check. Brittany, is my screen frozen? Is that screen frozen on Facebook? Okay. Thank you. All right, so 220 minus the age, and that gives me 135. So I do 135 times 0.4. This is to find my ranges. So 135 times 40% or 0.4. Okay, so that's 54. 135 times 0.6 or 60%, and that's 81. 81 to 101, and then 101 to 107. There's my pulse ranges, 54 to 81. And some people are like, my heart rate's already way above that already. Yeah, this is for normal, right? So when you're looking at somebody with a lung disease, a heart disease, there are going to be things that are abnormal. So it is normal to have a higher heart rate when you have those types of complications. It's not going to stick it down in normal zones. Okay, so if your heart rate's already higher than this and you're 85 years old, it's already higher than this, and this is low intensity workout, then that just means you're out of shape and you got some fixing to do. Okay, it does not mean take a medication. All I'm saying is all you have to do is just increase the, remember that, look at heart rate as your CO2 levels, right? So if your heart rate's a little high, then that means you're not exhaling enough. Work on lung volumes to get rid of more, to drop your heart rate back down to a better normal, you know, where it's more easily managed through that. Okay. By the way, this is not written up specifically by me. I didn't make this up. This is based off of the Bronson's guide. It's Bronson. So if you look it up, like on Google, Bronson's cardiac rehabilitation, they usually do the 220 minus the age, and then they do 40, 60, 60 to 75, 75 to 80. So that's basically the generic. For people that are starting in with our pulmonary or cardiac rehab, if I find that their heart rate's a little high, I just start working on volume in cardiac. Work on the lungs, even though everyone's like, oh, I have a heart complication, I don't have COPD. You don't have to have COPD. You're just not breathing well. You know, you don't have to have the diagnosis of COPD. You can have idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. You can just be breathing shallow, but doesn't mean you have COPD. You understand? So you're just not breathing in deep enough. So we just got to fix that, you know. So if we fix that, and by the way, that's fixable. You just got to work on it. So you got to fix that. So what types of exercise can I do to increase intercostal diaphragmatic muscle strengthening? Well, there's a lot of them available. And, oh, I am coming into time a little bit too much, but that's okay. Therapy bands. You can use a towel. Just pretend this is a towel, and I'll show you. Delta-V's, therapy bands, any types of respiratory muscle trainers, coffee straws will do them too. But you need to provide intercostal and diaphragmatic muscle strengthening. So there's a lot of variations with this one, but let's pretend this is a towel and not a stretchy band, okay? Just pretend this is a towel. I place the towel underneath my arms, just like so. I cross them, okay? And just don't put them on your diaphragm. Put them right where your ribs are, okay? You put them right there, cross them. So yeah, this is a towel. Pull the tension. Don't leave it loose. Pull tension and breathe in super deep. Let the towel actually provide enough, enough tension to provide a good amount of resistance for those intercostal muscle spaces. Rib muscles and diaphragm muscles are very strong, but it takes a certain amount of weight or resistance training to open up lungs that are very stiff. You understand? So if you can only breathe in super shallow, you have to work the bottom intercostal spaces more because they take more pressure to pull open. Let me do it like this. This. Okay. Milliliters and pounds. Let me bring this up just a little bit closer. Okay. So this would be 0 and this would be 0. Okay. So these are my ribs. Okay. Here's 0 and 0. So this is in milliliters and this is in pounds. If I opened up to 500 milliliters, that means I'm only utilizing this much of my lungs. Needless to say, I can't do a lot on breathing. I can be sitting still and just, hey, Mike, I can be sitting still and doing nothing, and that will keep me happy. My levels of oxygen doesn't go down. I don't get very out of breath sitting still doing nothing. But as soon as I start standing up where your body requires more, and you're only giving it a couple things like what a squirrel would use, it won't be enough, right? So anyways, to get to about 1,000, it takes roughly about 3 to 4 pounds of pressure. 3 to 4 pounds of pressure to pull open 1,000 milliliters, to get 1,000 milliliters of air inside your lungs. You can say oxygen if you want, but it's really air. Anyways, to get around 2,000, it'll take roughly me just get rid of this. Oops. To get to around 2,000 milliliters, it usually requires about 4 to 6 pounds of pressure. To get to about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. You're talking about a human being, not a squirrel. That's why I say when somebody's breathing at 500, I call them squirrels. You say, you're breathing like a squirrel. I say, that's not enough. You're not doing enough. That's not enough. Anyways, 4 to 6 pounds of pressure. Then it'll be 6 to 8 to get to around 3 to 4,000. To get to around 5,000 milliliters, and that's what human beings should be able to do. You're a human being. You're not a little animal, And even though that's kind of cute and funny, it's a big problem. You're getting out of breath too quickly because you're not supplying enough fuel for that. You're not supplying enough fuel to burn that fire. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? So, I wonder, I'm trying to think of a different analogy instead of like, you're breathing like a squirrel to use. If you think of any, just let me know. But basically, you're not supplying enough fuel. Because I would say like a good analogy would be like there's not enough gasoline in the tank, right? But if you had just a little bit of gasoline in the tank, it would still get you far. But you can only go so far. But maybe that's a good analogy. I'll just use that. I don't want to use squirrels all the time because now I'm seeing a lot of squirrels look at me with the nuts saying, I dare you, say that again. So anyways, to get to 5,000, it takes around 8 to 12. Now, let's look at it like this here. Is this for normal? Yes, that's for normal. What if you have restrictive lung disease? Then these multiply by 2. So instead of 3 to 4, it'll be 6 to 8 pounds of pressure because those lungs are very stiff. So if you had IPF, it's almost like you have to multiply by 2. And you can't breathe in deep. Okay, if you have more, and it doesn't have to be IPF, like idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It could be just restrictive lung disease. But your lungs are very scarred up, and it's taking a lot more pressure, a lot more pulling open the lungs to get air in, force. You understand? So let's look at it like this here too. I find this being a very common problem. You just have to do respiratory muscle training to get that up. It's not too tough. You just have to do pulmonary rehab with an actual pulmonary rehab practice that actually does breathing exercises, not just let me just get you on a treadmill and walk for a long period of time. I'm going to check your oxygen, and that's it. That's not pulmonary rehab. That's physical therapy. You need pulmonary rehab, not just physical therapy. Don't let a physical therapist tell you that they learned 6 years in pulmonary. Okay? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen. Don't let anybody tell you that. Okay? Always, there's nothing wrong with asking. You see a clinician, you're just like, hey, what makes you so qualified? Oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. Well, how do I know you've been doing it wrong for 30 years? Ask specific questions when you want to get help. People go to me a lot. They go to me because of, I do a pretty darn decent job with people. I'm kind of like the drill sergeant here a little bit. You can tell with this, but with the Delta-V on 5, I get to 1,000 constantly. With it on 0, I can't seem to get higher than 1,500. What can I do to get this number higher? Okay. So with the Delta-V, you're on 5. It's a very high setting. It's a high resistance setting. So I'm thinking what's happening is, let's say this. It's a different subject than what I'm trying to go over, but it's okay, Karen. We'll just make this all about you. I'm just joking. So on my Delta-V, I'm going to set it to a 5. I'm playing with you, right? I'm just messing with you. But anyways, so let's say I'm on a 5 right now on my Delta-V. That means the Delta-V is set to a 5. Okay, because it says 5. I know it looks invisible in there, but it does say it. Anyways, so I breathe in a 5. You're using it as a limiter. Thank you, Mary. Mary Ann, she's awesome. You guys make me blush every time. So you're using this as a limiter, where you're preventing fast inhalation. When you set it to a 5 and I try to breathe in super fast, it will limit that. It will prevent that. Well, I'll explain in a second. So I put this, let's say I put this at a 0. Okay. Put this at a 0. Right now the Delta-V is to a 0. And I can't get very high than I could at a 4,000. But if I put some resistance on there preventing the ability to breathe in super fast, preventing a higher volume, because remember, breathing in too fast will hurt your volume. So if I set it to a 5, no matter how hard I try to breathe in, because I'm used to breathing in fast, it will prevent it. And that's why you'll get a high volume on a 5. But on a 0, you're not getting as high because you're breathing in too fast. I'm thinking the flow meter. You're not looking at the flow meter. So I have this at a 5. I breathe in. You're pushing, you're pulling in too hard. So on a 5, what you want to do is actually on a 0, I think what you're doing is when you're trying to breathe in super fast, that's the reason why they have a flow meter. If you breathe in too fast, the top parts of your lungs are the only ones that open up. That's why they're easier to open up and breathe with. So when you breathe right now, you're really just opening up the top. To get to the bottom lungs, to open up all areas in your lungs, you have to breathe in you need more timing. Okay, if the muscles are a little weak, you just need more timing. Meaning, that's why if you try to breathe in super fast, watch, I'll show you. When I breathe in super fast, okay, that's as high as I can go. But if I keep this in here, my volume will be a lot higher because I jeopardize my volume by breathing in too fast. That's why there's a flow meter on the incentive spirometer, because if it's too high, then your measurement's always incorrect. Does that make sense? It's always incorrect. So if you have it at a 5, it just means, and you're getting a high volume on a 5 than a 0, it just means that when you try to breathe in super fast, it's preventing the speed of fast inhalation. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I hope it does. If it doesn't, just let me know. Okay, but it's almost like a check valve or a pressure. It's almost like a pressure relief valve on a water system or something like that. I'm using a different term. I'm using construction term, but it's like your street. I'm not sure this is a good analogy. Just let me know if it's too confusing. But let's say the street pressure of water coming into your house. Let's say the street pressure is 160 psi. And then you have a regulator that gets put onto it to only allow 80 psi to go into your home. Because if it's too high, then the pipes could burst, right? And that's why you have a regulator regulating it. The Delta-V, you're using that as a regulator, preventing a faster inhale. And that's why your volume is a lot higher. Does that make sense? It does. Okay, perfect. Good. It's a good question, too, though. But that's why I think of good analogies here. I think of really good radical analogies when I'm with you guys, because I just, it's just using the medical lingo. Oh, it's just because you have too much positive and expiratory pressure that's not allowing, preventing, and using medical lingo just doesn't help, so it's just using different analogy, different terms to make it. Anyways, oh darn, Karen, I forgot what I was going to put up here. Does anybody remember? I was talking about volume, right? I was talking about volume. Actually, it's been an hour. I can't. They're gonna pull me. They're gonna pull me in another meeting. I know they are. So it's been an hour. I'm sorry, guys. I can't do any more. But I'll do. Like I said, we'll keep this up on Thursdays. We haven't been able to do Thursdays as often, but we're going to keep up on it. I'm going to make sure I keep up on it, so I'm going to let them know. Some news report. Even though it's technically official, but it's still not official, if that makes any sense. So it's considered official, but it's technically not. However you want to look at it. The news is that the whole territory of Puerto Rico, the whole thing. It's okay, Karen. Don't worry. Don't beat yourself. Anybody complains, I'll just point them at you. That's all right. Oh, you're fine. But the whole territory of Puerto Rico. I don't know if anybody have heard of a company called Vitality 360. So that's our company, and Cyresp. So it's two companies combined working together. So we partnered with them. Well, the whole territory of Puerto Rico is asking HRN or Vitality 360 to be inside helping 250,000 people. So we found that out, and Matt Young, very good person. He's a good friend and a very good business partner. He said, Alex, I didn't want to call you at night because you wouldn't sleep. I said, what is it? He said, you sitting down? He said, so Puerto Rico needs us. I said, who's that? He says, no, the whole entire state. I said, what? I said, the whole thing, the country? He says, well, there is probably about a few millions of people there, but the people that need help is 250,000. I said, you're saying we have to onboard 250,000 people? When? So this actually happened. So it's a big news for us, but we've been super busy trying to get that ready. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Can you imagine that, though? Hey, Karen, here, let me give you 250,000 people. Take care of her for me. Keep everybody alive. Don't mess around. But it's actually, we can do it. It's not like we can't do it, but what a mind job that is, just to know that you're going to save a large population. That's just something you can't. Yes, it's got woo. I'm not sure if I'll use that term though, Mary, but it's just you wake up and you're just surprised because they don't have any resources. They have no resources to do all that. So, yeah, we're going to be very busy. So 250,000 people. And then we have some other companies trying to join in because they're like, you guys, your programs work amazing, or it's just ridiculously amazing. And I said, yeah, well, that's what we do. Our patients love us. We do a really good job. And, oh, you changed the good job. I thought you said God's job. I was like, ooh, no, I'm not. No, don't give me that label. but it's that's big news. So if you guys wondering where am I, that's what I'm doing. I'm not just dressed up in sweats, but we're all working hard on this. Brittany, Abby, Crystal. We have Jen just started up with us. Melanie, we have a new respiratory therapist now. We're grabbing some more respiratory therapists. We have just a lot more to go to get that ready. We have about 3 months to get that ready. 3 months to be ready to handle. It's a lot. It's 250,000 people. A lot of those people, and holding a high success rate. Not just getting them a little help, but getting them all back. Like where they can live normal lives. So, yeah, that's some big news. So, anyways, guys, that is it. I see you guys. I deserve it. Why are you putting that much pressure on me, Mary? No. Guys, that's it. I'll see you guys next week on Thursday, and I'll do it on Facebook. We were trying to get people to go on Zoom so I can be able to see you and answer questions, but this is cool. All right.